Okay, welcome into Casey Sports Tonight, Thursday, February 5th. Zach was anchoring yesterday, and he said it was Tuesday, and it made me feel a little bit better about always getting the days wrong when I do this show. As soon as we start, it makes me realize I don't know what day of
I
the week
just
it is.
ignore the day of the week and I just say the
Honestly, a
date.
better way to go, especially because, as we've talked about on this show, our weeks during the football season, which historically have been still going on right now, uh, revolve around Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid talk on Wednesday, coordinators talk on Thursday. We have Fast Friday, game Sunday, and my entire life is thrown off in the absence of that. So anyway, Thursday.
Now everything is just, does KU play on Big Monday or Super Tuesday?
Yeah, exactly. Floating us through February here. Gonna get to some football related things in just a minute here, but got to start with the big news of the day, kind of round two. Yesterday, we first told you that Argentina is calling Kansas City home for the duration of the World Cup, which is crazy. As is the case with a lot of these big news things, I feel like I get so wrapped up in like the reporting and the details and the X's and O's and trying to get this stuff on air and get the information out to you all. And then when you take a step back, it's like, wow, that's huge. Like, that's a really big deal. That's going to be really cool to have the defending World Cup champions here for the entirety of the World Cup as they look to become just the third team in World Cup history to repeat as champions. So, Kansas City, I said this yesterday on our shows, this was already going to be the biggest event in Kansas City history, and every piece of the puzzle that gets put together just keeps amplifying it to like a whole new level.
Yeah.
So having all of Argentina's presumably fans coming to Kansas City where their team is base camping and they'll play, their group stage matches and maybe the round of 32 and quarterfinals should they get there and should the, I guess, pieces fall into place again. It's going to be crazy here, Gabe.
Yeah, I think that their fans will mostly be either here or Dallas because their other two group stage matches are in Dallas, and even if they want to, they can. It's drivable. I mean, so depending on rental car situations and all of those kinds of things, and yeah, we were talking about it earlier this week of just how Katie and I were talking yesterday about how Argentina just maximizes this, and I don't think that people will realize until probably June arrives and it like slaps them in the face just how many people will come here. And if there was, because inevitably I think that there's probably a city or two in the World Cup this year that's hosting that the projections of how many people are going to show up for aren't going to, like, I would think, based on depending on which countries arrive, one of the cities or not will not reach their expected amount of people. But if Argentina's coming and if Messi's playing, and particularly if the draw plays out that they end up playing a quarterfinal here as well, if they win their group and they advance and advance and advance, it's going to be huge. And we've already seen like the report from the BBC that England is coming, that they haven't officially put forth, but that's two of the top four teams. And so there's, just from a location standpoint, if you're international soccer media, it's not only really good teams, but it's nations that care so much. They care about soccer like we care about American football. So it's huge.
Yeah. As soon as we got the news yesterday, we got in touch with Roger Espinoza, who's going to be our soccer analyst for the course of from now through the World Cup, which is extremely exciting. Obviously, he was a legend with Sporting Kansas City, played in a World Cup himself. So I FaceTimed him from my live shot location at Arrowhead Stadium, and he's in Palm Springs with Sporting Kansas City as they continue their preseason. But one of the things I asked him was, like, how important is your base camp selection process? Like, how big is that to find out where you're going? And he's like, it's huge. It's a huge disadvantage to have to fly cross country to get to your game. I mean, they're going to be driving 30 minutes down the road tops. I don't know how.
And then just doing a simple flight to Dallas and back.
Yeah, exactly. I think our 4 o'clock producer yesterday had a graphic where any flight to any of the game sites is like a 4-hour direct flight from Kansas City versus having to do like a red eye from LA to get to the other side of the country. So
which the U.S. has put itself in the choice of being on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And
which is a choice.
Yeah, that's their choice.
Kansas City also relatively, I don't think this is an issue at this level, but distraction-free. The highway system is relatively simple. Like getting to and from places is simple. The quote-unquote small-town feel. I mean, I'm obviously unbiased, but logistically it makes sense. And Argentina, proved that by having the top selection as the defending champions and saying, hey, not only do we want Kansas City, but we want the Compass Minerals National Performance Center. So, yeah, I mean, huge news for Kansas City.
Yeah.
Keeps on piling on. And we'll add even more to the festivities come June 16th / slightly before, I would imagine. So,
yeah.
Looking forward to that. And we said we reported this yesterday. Today, Sporting Kansas City formally announced the news that they have specifically been chosen as their host site. And then tomorrow we will be talking with Sporting Kansas City's president to explain a little bit more about the decision process and give everyone a look at the facilities.
Facilities
for
the festivities.
For the festivities.
There you go.
That was another thing Roger Espinoza said yesterday was, we hear all the time, like, those facilities are world-class, but to get a look inside will be cool just when it comes to, like, the recovery rooms and cold tubs and all the technology that they have. Again, there's a reason why Messi and company said, we want to go there.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to San Francisco, Santa Clara area. NFL honors tonight. Chiefs do not have anyone up for any of the play awards, MVP, Rookie of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, but Travis Kelce is the team's honoree, again, for the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. Gabe, you and I were kind of joking earlier this afternoon, trying to, like, guess if he has a shot of it. We have no idea.
Yeah,
we do not know what the other 31 players in the league that were nominated do in their respective communities. But still, it'll be fun to watch tonight at 8 o'clock and would be another feather in Travis Kelce's hat.
Yeah, you came over and said,
do
you think Kelsey's gonna win? And I said, I think he has a 1 out of 32 chance.
Yeah.
And I don't remember. I think that this was on Pardon My Take like years ago, but Blake Bortles was the Jacksonville Jaguars nominee, and he was like, were you bummed out? He was asked if he was bummed out about not winning the Walter Payton Man of the Year when he was their team nominee, and he said, I attended the award ceremony, but he's like, but I probably wouldn't even have gone if you had told me that Chris Long had been bottling water in Africa for months for his charity. Yeah. And so, as you point out, I don't know what the other 31 teams nominees are doing. I know what Travis Kelce does with Operation Breakthrough and 87 and running and all of that work. The selection process. The other thing is he keeps winning the charity challenge, the votes.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what the history of it is as far as giving the winner, allowing someone to like double dip and win the charity vote and win the others. But if he does win, he would be the 6th Chief to do it since the award began, and it would be the first time since 2009. So we'll see. Well, I think that it's who knows.
Yeah.
The other Chiefs related, I guess, or Chiefs adjacent thing to keep an eye on both tonight and then into Sunday, I would say, is we heard so many times in 2022 when the Super Bowl was in Phoenix and the Chiefs were playing in it and Patrick Mahomes won the MVP. He was named MVP, and then people were like, well, people don't win the MVP and win the Super Bowl in the same season. Drake May, if he wins MVP, could win MVP and win the Super Bowl in the same season. And that is he could. I don't necessarily think that he's going to win MVP. I think that Stafford is probably going to win it, or the Super Bowl.
That was what I was getting at.
Yeah. So I think he could come away with neither of them, but it's a possibility that he could get both.
Yeah.
So I think that it's a close MVP race between him and Matthew Stafford, but
not as black and white as it has been in years past. Okay, kind of alluding to our next point of conversation, but you and I also realized before we started recording the show that we have not talked about The Super Bowl really this week, largely because there's obviously not a lot of local interests as opposed to years past. Um, it's been fun around the newsroom the last couple of days, kind of reminiscing on like where were we a year ago today or 2 years ago today,
Or
a
3 years ago today.
or 3 years ago today, right? Or 5 years ago today. Um, but not being there is obviously disappointing. However, there are some local connections that we've talked about. The Seahawks center, Jalen Sundell, hails from Maryville, Missouri. Really cool story there about playing football at North Dakota State, being an undrafted free agent, and working his way up to starting as a center for the Super Bowl team today, Sunday. He also was an Uber driver after college and thought about quitting football entirely.
Yeah.
So really cool story there. Katie Marr did an interview with his parents this week right before they left for Santa Clara. So that is on KCTV5.com. Neil Jones today is doing a story about former Baker University quarterback Mac Brown, who will be coaching in Sunday's game. So we have some local ties and little strings to, kind of root for. If anything, a fun fact to share at your Super Bowl party when you're talking to friends and stuff.
And Mason Richmond, Blue Valley High alum, is also on the Seahawks. He's a backup offensive lineman, so unless something unfortunate happens with one of their starters, he would not play. But it's another guy who has a chance to win a ring and be a part of something, and so that's cool to have. But yeah, we're grasping for straws as far as local connections to the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah.
But Neil was telling me about the story today. I would highly advise people check it out either in the newscast or on KCTV5.com.
Yeah, 6 o'clock in the newscast, I think, after the first commercial break, and then 10 o'clock in the sports segment.
Yeah.
Okay, Gabe, quickly, we talked about Drake May. We kind of made a little side-off joke there. Your predictions for how Sunday's game's going to go before we round this out with a little college basketball.
Yeah, I mean, we've been I think I've given this game very little thought because it's not necessarily working me up in terms of my rooting interest is pretty easily decided by not wanting to see the Patriots win another Super Bowl. I know it's a different coaching staff. It's a different quarterback. It's the same owner, and it's the same fan base that has experienced a lot of winning over the last 20 years. And so I think that – and the Patriots dynasty, which you could argue that they've had two of them because they spaced it out and they had a pretty significant Super Bowl gap in the middle of it with Brady and Belichick. That dynasty being followed up with just a couple down years without Brady, and then they stumble into Drake May as a franchise quarterback. I just don't feel like they necessarily need one. And the Seahawks are the better offense, better defense. I think that the coaching matchup is pretty equal. But if the Chiefs someday, post Andy Reid, post Patrick Mahomes, 2 or 3 years after Mahomes retires, then the Chiefs end up stumbling into another franchise quarterback and then a Super Bowl run in which the said quarterback does something very similar to Tom Brady, doesn't play very well in the playoffs, and his defense carries him to the Super Bowl. I think the general public, the national audience, would mostly not be rooting for Kansas City and would mostly say
That's a fair point.
They've had plenty of winning.
Sure.
They don't need this.
Yeah.
I know that Seattle has not – it's not like they've never done it before. They've won a Super Bowl a decade ago, and they were one inexplicable goal line decision away from going back-to-back.
Yeah.
But the Sam Darnold redemption story, all of that involved, I just think that they're pretty easy to root for in this situation. So I expect Seattle to win. I will be rooting for Seattle to win for all of those reasons, and the local ties as well certainly don't hurt either.
Here's a question I don't think I've ever asked you. As we do a lot of reflecting on, like, a year ago today, Neil Jones and I were getting attacked by a tuba on the streets of New Orleans, and I wish that was a joke. Did you think, and I'm kind of racking your brain here, but did you think that game was going to be closer than it was, Eagles-Chiefs?
Yeah, I mean it, because every Chiefs
I know hindsight's
the Chiefs have
20/20,
yet,
but
like, that's the other thing is you look back at the 5 Super Bowls that the Chiefs have played in the Mahomes era, and by all of the metrics and such, the opponents that they've played, they have consistently, you could argue, played better the opponent's roster has been better than theirs. Mahomes and the offense has just kind of overcome things. 2023, they had a great defense, but that defense still had trouble against the 49ers in that overtime game, and was the first defense ever to allow a score on their last drive and give up the lead and be saved out by their offense going and taking it back. So, yeah, I thought last year's Super Bowl was going to be closer, but like mid-second quarter, it was very apparent that this was different than the getting down 10 every single time. I would hope that if the Chiefs someday are able to get to a 6th Super Bowl with Mahomes, that they snap the streak of every single
Getting
Super Bowl they've played in, getting down double digits.
I remember sitting in the press box, and it's kind of segmented by, like, the Kansas City area reporters are in one area, and the Chiefs get down 10-0, and it's pretty quiet, and someone in the back screams, "We got him right where we want him."
Yeah, that's
like,
how I
okay.
felt. And then it got to like 17, and it was like, yeah, this is not
gonna turn
not
around.
great.
Yeah. Okay, going to wrap this up with a little college basketball. Bill Self talking today, taking the podium earlier this afternoon. Kind of an interesting schedule period for the Jayhawks. They're coming off 2 back-to-back top 15 wins. They have 2 top 10 teams next week, and in the meantime, they have the last place team in the conference in Utah on Saturday. They also have they have a Saturday-Monday flip. They're playing on Big Monday again, and you go from the last place team in the conference at 1-8, they even lost to K-State, to the number 1 team in the country on Monday. So Self was kind of asked about, like, how do you navigate that? You have a star player who has had some minutes issues because of nagging injuries and stuff. That's a 48-hour turnaround. Like, what? And he gave the typical coach answer of, we're not looking past Utah and all those things. Gabe, how do you think you kind of navigate that type flip if you're Kansas?
I think that you have to, the coaching staff, like behind the scenes, what fans probably don't think about, but what coaching staffs do is when they have these tight turnarounds and when they have even the Big 12 tournament or whatever, when they play back-to-back-to-back, a coach on the staff is responsible for the Arizona scout. And I promise you, the Arizona scout for Monday night is not beginning on Saturday afternoon at 3:30 p.m. when they finish the Utah game. That whoever that individual is that's been assigned to do that scout is already well at work in terms of doing that, I promise you. And others are probably focused more on Utah. The team, as long as they don't show up like sleepwalking through Saturday, they should win. I subjected myself to watching Utah basketball last night because they were playing against my alma mater. I actually really enjoyed the game because Utah was so bad that they lost to a bad Arizona State team. And that to me was evidence as to this team is – I've watched them play against K-State. I've watched them play against ASU. I've watched them play BYU, which is a rivalry game. And they actually – the one time that they've competed was BYU, but it was at home, packed arena, all of those types of atmosphere things. If KU just comes out and executes and does the things that they've been doing as of late, I don't expect anything differently from KU. They have matchup advantages across the board, and if there's one thing you could worry about with KU this year, it's usually off the offensive end more than it is the defensive end. They've been a great defensive team. A, offense is easier when Darren Peterson plays, and B, Utah's defensive rating in the country is in the 200s out of the 350-something Division I teams. So they're a really bad defensive team, so that shouldn't be a big issue. And if they play great in the first half, which they did at home against Iowa State, and they did at home against Baylor, and they did at home against BYU, you can afford the second half to play Jaden Dawson and play Cole Rosario, and maybe at the big spot, maybe you get a couple Paul and Bia minutes, and you lessen the load for Flory and Bryson Tiller and Darren Peterson and Melvin Council, who plays like 37, 38 minutes.
Pretty nicked up right now.
Yeah, he's questionable for Saturday. That was one of the things that Self said. So if they do what they're supposed to, I don't think that you should have to worry about them straining for the turnaround that BYU and Tech was, where both of those opponents are really good, and both of those are expected to be 40 minutes of high-level adrenaline, where like Bill Self talked about it on Saturday when they beat BYU. the whole first half he was like, we were running on adrenaline, and it kind of wore off in the second half. I don't think you need to like run on adrenaline to beat Utah.
Right.
And you might need it Monday night against Arizona.
You also brought up a great point at the top of this, which is Big 12 tournament. You're going to play probably, hopefully, 3 days in a row. And also Arizona's in the exact same situation. They play Oklahoma State, and then they have to travel on the road to Allen Fieldhouse on Monday. So something else kind of interesting is Kansas is 2 games back from first. Self said today wishes they could have that first 10 days of the Big 12 season back because you lose to UCF and West Virginia. 1 or 2 of those go the other way, as they should have, given the talent that we've seen out of this team now, and we're having a different conversation. But next 3 games, I'm counting Utah, but then Arizona at home, Iowa State on the road. Yes, you beat them by a lot at home, but it's a different story in Ames. Going to be really big in determining, of course, you want to win the Big 12 regular season title, but in this new age of the Big 12, getting that double bye in the Big 12 tournament is huge. So finishing in the top 4 sounds reasonable, but in the Big 12, you have, I don't know how many top 15 teams. I mean, you have Arizona, Houston.
6 in the top 16 at the moment.
Yeah.
BYU lost again last night, but...
Yeah. You could theoretically have a equal seed in the NCAA tournament as you do in the Big 12 tournament, maybe lower.
When KU lost at West Virginia, people started to be like, what's the tournament resume look like for KU? And now, 6 games later, they have the most quad 1 wins of any team in the Big 12.
Yeah.
And so their resume got a lot better by beating Iowa State and beating Texas Tech and beating BYU. And Arizona is another one of those opportunities. Iowa State's another one of those opportunities. And then a couple weeks from now, you get Houston at home, too. So
and you'll have Arizona again on the road.
Yeah.
So table's theirs. Opportunities are there for him, and opportunities are not there for K-State, which we can touch on, I guess, a little bit. 1-8, they're second to last in the Big 12, only because they have the tiebreaker to Utah. Gabe, I'm curious, you heard Jerome Tang's press conference on, was it Sunday now?
Yeah.
Where he said he wasn't disappointed in the team's performance.
And that he owed the fan base nothing.
I know that fans don't love to hear that, obviously, but we won't get too deep into the weeds, but I'm curious your thoughts on the state of K-State men's basketball.
Yeah, we talk so often during the summers of training camp and all that for the Chiefs about what is truthful and what is not, that is said by like Andy Reid in particular.
Yeah.
Our friends at our sister station K-Witch, TJ Cleveland, he went out and did a Zoom press conference or a Zoom interview with Gene Taylor and talked to him this week about his feelings around the program, how he was feeling about the basketball program, and he also talked about the football program and the hiring of Colin Klein and such. But particularly with the basketball program, Gene Taylor gave a vote of support toward Jerome Tang. Gene Taylor also at the Chris Kleiman retirement press conference, when he was asked about whether he should be worried about being able to hire a football coach, which we all know now was like set up for him by Chris Kleiman talking to Colin Klein before it. He cited Jerome Tang as a guy who did not have head coaching experience, who was a good hire, and every single K-State loss, my Twitter feed is inevitably filled by someone reposting that clip, suggesting that Gene Taylor is a little out of touch with what's going on with the basketball program at this point. So I saw those comments to K-Witch, and I question whether that is truth or whether that is a comment that you make now and then you reevaluate things in March, because everybody keeps talking about the $18 million buyout for Jerome Tang and pointing out that, well, it gets lower next year. It's still $15 million at the end of next year. So that's not like an amount that the university is just going to be able to eat. So I don't know whether that $3 million is worth tanking presumably the 2026-27 season as well. But it is really bleak stuff for K-State at this point. And I don't know. They've
That's why I kind of volley that question to you.
They've
just
just
not much
lost.
to say.
Yeah.
I mean, beating Utah, that's their sole win in Big 12 play right now, isn't much of a resume builder. I'm excited to see them when they come to Kansas City and kind of get a quote-unquote blank slate. But the KU team last year that was by the numbers, the worst team in the Bill Self era, like found ways to lose, but K-State's just not really in any games. I mean, Jacob Pullen, I know, was tweeting on Sunday watching that Iowa State game how disappointed he was. So if you have a team that's like the Chiefs this year, where it's just they kind of kept dropping games early in the season by a play or two, that's different than just games that are hard watches. So,
I mean, Tang's first year, they won a bunch. They won at home a bunch. His second year, they were an NIT team, 19 wins. They barely missed the tournament, but they won at home the majority of the time. Last year, that stopped happening. And this year, not only are they losing at home, they're losing in non-competitive fashion to rivals at home. KU and Iowa State blow them off the court. So it just progressively gets worse. There's no sign of improvement.
On that bleak note, we will call it a day here on KC Sports Tonight. Again, keep an eye out tonight. Travis Kelce up for Walter Payton Man of the Year. That is at 8 o'clock local time. And as we said, if you didn't get a chance to watch or listen to those two stories by Katie and Neil about local connections to the Super Bowl, really good watches. And again, something to talk about at your Super Bowl party this Sunday that you will be paying more attention to the commercials and the game, I imagine. That'll do it for us. We'll see you at the same time, same place tomorrow.